Hi, Mark Bossert, top local lead generation. We're here with Dr. Nicholas Jensen. He's a naturopath in Vancouver BC. How are you doing today, Doc?
Great, Mark. Thanks for having me again, and I'm doing fantastic. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
So we're going to talk about food allergies, how to determine and deal with them. So I guess the first question really out of that is like, how do you know whether it's a food allergy that's got you not feeling particularly great?
hmm Yeah, and I mean, I guess this conversation started from the last talk we did just regarding inflammation and obviously the topic of food sensitivity has come up. So really, how do you know if you're dealing with them? The way I step back and say is there's only a few things that happen throughout each and every day where you're having a direct influence on your health. And I mean, we're bombarded with all sorts of environmental influences, whether it's friends, family, or stresses with work or whatever, which obviously all play a huge role in the health of the body. But one thing that's so consistent is what we put into our bodies every single day. And so when we start to take a close look at how we're feeling after each meal, over time we just get used to a new normal. So what we really want to do is take a step back and get a clear look at what's going on with the food that we're eating. And there's all sorts of different ways to actually find out if there's a specific allergy or sensitivity going on. So is this a new topic, do you feel like, or is this something that you've heard of, Mark?
Well, sure. I mean, it's something that um, people talk about it a lot, and then our son had a lot of we self-diagnosed or we diagnosed kind of issues around all kinds of foods, and so for a long time, we were vegans and we kind of followed a pretty strict diet because it really helped with our son's kind of growing up period. And then as he got older, it seemed like his immune system was able to deal with a lot more stuff.
hmm
And now, he's not a vegetarian. He just eats whatever he wants. And we've continued on with being, that way for 28 years. But
hmm
so something I kind of personally know, but I don't have the background that you do. So that's where I'm sort of interested in. Okay, well,
What does
there's
that look like?
the anecdotal stuff, but then how do you guys know and pinpoint when you're
hmm
actually testing someone? What are the tests maybe that you
Yeah.
use?
Yeah, so when we're taking anyone into or we're taking any sort of intake with the patient, we're always addressing, what is it that you're actually putting in your body on a regular basis. And for most people, we would start to look into the food sensitivity picture when there's an obvious imbalance in the digestive process. So, I mean, this can be something that can happen early on in life, and people just go through life and deal with it. And like I said, they just get used to a new normal, or they decide to do something about it. And in the Western medical system, everything's talked about with regards to allergy, and the word sensitivity is almost it's a term that kind of gives, I think, medical doctors and GPs shivers down their spine because it's typically not something that's discussed, and it's not something that they have the experience with dealing. So many things go diagnosed into, mood disorders or chronic fatigue or chronic migraine headaches or heartburn, insomnia, again, hormonal imbalance. All these things get diagnosed under different ideas, and then the problem is because we're just looking at symptomatic picture. So if we're take a step back, looking what's the bigger picture, what's the underlying thing that you're doing on a daily basis that's possibly causing problems. Now we're getting somewhere. So what we do is we'll do a blood test for we're basically a blood draw in the clinic, and we send it off to the lab. The lab is reading something called IgG, which is basically an antibody that reads high or low when introduced to a certain food item. So for a particular food item, if your immune system is reacting to it, these IgG levels will be extremely high. And they'll also be moderate or mild depending on what it is that you're eating a lot of, or depending on what your immune system doesn't like. So it's quite different than an allergy. And to really separate the two, an allergy is an immediate reaction that happens in the body. It's usually upper respiratory in nature, sinuses, nose. Sometimes it can be difficulty breathing or asthma. So it's usually the upper respiratory tract, but it can also be headaches and things too. The thing with allergies, though, is it's a short time frame. So it comes on strong usually, and then it dissipates fairly quickly through the body, possibly within 24 hours, the most 48. Sensitivity, on the other hand, is it's called a delayed hypersensitivity reaction, which basically means that this reaction can happen the moment you put that food item in your mouth, but it can also last up to 5 days. And the issue here is that so many people may only have this particular food item maybe twice or 3 times a week, but because it's a delayed reaction, these symptoms won't actually show up for a few days. And it can become very frustrating, especially when you're doing things on your own and saying, well, I tried this, I didn't eat that today, and I'm, no reaction, or I did eat this today and there's a reaction. How do I know what's going on? And at the end of the day, it just creates a lot of confusion for people. So for those people who have a difficult time with some of the food elimination pieces, like following an anti-inflammatory diet, for example, we'll often recommend a blood test to figure out what it is that their body's actually sensitive to. And once we find that, we put together a detailed plan or nutrition plan based on those food sensitivities. And with proper elimination, not just with the 1 or 2 items, but with, say, the 5 or 6 items that are really causing a problem, people have extremely profound benefit to eliminating them. And there's always I guess there's always a problem that shows up after we see people doing that elimination for that first month, because we're so used to eating a certain way, and it can be a bit of a difficult process for some people. So they want to reintroduce the foods as fast as they can. And when you do that, that's when big problems happen. So in particular, just thinking back to a few different patients who have done too early of a reintroduction, they've had massive, basically their symptoms have come back into an extreme kind of a way, because their immune system is just hypersensitive and waiting to react for that food item, and when it's brought in too early, the body has a pretty big reaction. So the general recommendation is 90 days to avoid these particular foods. For some people, they need to wait a little bit longer, but the whole goal is to really change a lifestyle pattern, so that these symptoms that are often diagnosed as different names start to clear. So, and that sounds like it's a similar process to what your son went through.
Sure. So, like, corn chips. Let's pick on something.
Yeah.
Something that's an obvious and fairly, a lot of people know that corn is a pretty big culprit can cause sensitivities. And I love how you defined how sensitivities are different than allergies. And, to me, it almost is like a sensitivity is more of a chronic thing. That's ongoing, and it sort of just runs you down, where the allergy is like, bang, it's the punch in the head, and it's like, whoa, I just can't eat that, and it's obvious.
Yeah.
So like corn chips, if you cut them out of your diet, well, what would be, like, somebody say they're going to have less mucus, they're going to have less, better bowel movement, I mean, more energy, what sort of, how does this manifest?
Yeah, that's the funny thing with sensitivities. Like I said, allergy is usually upper respiratory in nature, and it usually clears fairly quickly. A food sensitivity is it can look like almost anything. I've had people with food sensitivities that have had chronic migraine headaches, eczema rashes, psoriasis, joint pain, fatigue, mucus formation or chronic sinusitis, or extreme difficulty with the bowels. And often, here's a case where someone with Crohn's or colitis, with these chronic, very serious bowel disorders, there's so often, if not, I can't say always, but there's so often an underlying food sensitivity problem. So this is the funny thing, and when people start to open up to food sensitivities, they start to see that there's such a vast array of different symptoms that can happen for any one given individual. And so I can never really predict what it is that that particular food item will do once it's out of the system. But like I said, when you're taking someone who's had chronic digestive upset for a good part of their life, or difficulty breathing, or chronic joint pain or headaches, and you clear that out of the way, it's like you're in a new body, basically. And it's quite, I mean, everything comes back online. Thinking, clear, energy, the hormones start to change too, and it's quite profound.
So if somebody wants to get clarity as to whether they suspect, because I mean we really don't know as a lay person whether without testing.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, they've just got to book an appointment, come in, and say, "Hey, let's you know let's
Let's
tune up
discover
this
what's going on
engine
here.
here."
Yeah. Well, that's just it, and it doesn't always mean that we have to do a food test. I always want to let people know it doesn't have to go there. Sometimes with some good coaching, we can get some, good resolve. However, for a good majority of people, that testing becomes such a helpful tool because it is something we can track down the line too. And we are in the day and age of needing objective information because there's so much, do this, do that out there, and it's easy to get lost on the internet reading all these different ideas or following a specific diet plan that's been written in the latest book. Just because it's general information or it's very popularized doesn't mean it's going to be very specific for you as an individual. So that's the focus that we really try to overlay for the patient, that this is your nutrition plan. This isn't your mom's, your sister's, your brother's. This is yours. And if it works for you, great. And like I said, when people do eliminate those things that are on those food tests, um, I'd say at least 90% removal of those symptoms and the phenomenal change in how the health is in the body. So, yeah, definitely come on by or give us a call, and you can always ask about what's involved in getting a food test, and maybe that's the direction you need to go. Maybe there's another one for you, but yeah, look forward to seeing you.
Sure. So basically, it's so complicated. How our current health is a pretty complex stack of blocks, basically, and then what we're putting into it is really different, as well as whatever environmental issues or our own stress levels or how we're dealing, what we're doing to deal with the stress level that we have. All
Hmm.
that becomes a really complex package that you need a professional to unpack and make sense out of what that complexity is. And that's
Hmm.
where a naturopath has the training and the experience to
Hmm.
start to be able to make sense out of it, so you have a direction that works rather than just experimenting.
Well, exactly. I can't tell you how many people come in for their first visit with a giant bag of supplementation and list of all the things that they've done, and I always, the first question is how's that working for you? And they're usually, it's like I've been banging my head against the wall because I don't know. I don't know what these 10 supplements or 20 supplements are doing for me, but they're supposed to be good for me. So again, individualized, very focused professional treatment is really helpful, and it's gonna, like I tell most people, is you end up saving money down in the long run because you're actually targeting what needs to be targeted. So that's for sure. I mean, we're all, who's not guilty of that though? I mean, definitely before naturopathic medicine, I would look on the internet or you look in books and see what's wrong with me. I'm going to try to figure it out. But just like if we're going to get our computer fixed or if we're going to go get our car fixed, we're not going to take it to our neighbor. We're not going to ask our friends and relatives what we should do. We may ask for a referral to go see someone that to seek professional advice, and that's what we're recommending here as well. So you can get targeted, focused healthcare that's individualized for yourself and not for the general public.
Awesome. So if you have or suspect you have any kind of food allergies or food sensitivities, this is the guy to come and see, Dr. Nicholas Jensen. You can see their website at divineelements.ca or give them a call, 604-568-3735. Thanks, Dr. Nicholas.
Thanks so much, Mark. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.